This is how you quietly win at everything. 5 rules of mental dominance. Mastering others is strength. Mastering yourself is true power. Lao Tzu. Part 1. The foundation of quiet power. Most people chase influence like it's a performance. They talk louder, move faster, try harder. But real influence doesn't need a stage. It doesn't scream to be heard. It whispers, and people listen. This is how you quietly win at everything, by understanding what others overlook. That mental dominance isn't about overpowering someone else. It's about mastering yourself so completely that the world starts to respond without force, without effort. The world adjusts to you. You're about to learn 5 rules that don't just shift how people see you. They change how you think, how you carry yourself, how you think under pressure, how you hold the room without raising your voice. This isn't surface-level confidence. It's quiet control built from the inside out. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Rule 1. Master the inner war. The first battlefield is always within. Before you try to control a room, a negotiation, or a conflict, you must first control your own reactions. This is Rule 1. Master the inner war. The Stoics knew this well. Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Think about that. You don't win by changing the world. You win by changing your response to it. Because influence starts with presence. And presence begins when your emotions no longer dictate your behavior. Most people are reacting, spinning, defending, explaining. But the person who pauses, even for a breath, has already altered the trajectory of any interaction. In stillness, there's control. In control, there's power. Next time you feel triggered, don't speak. Don't move. Just breathe. Let the feeling rise like a wave. Let it crest. Let it pass. Then choose your response like a chess master, not like a pawn. That's mental dominance. Chapter 2. Rule 2. Observe more than you speak. Rule 2 is simple to understand, but rare to master. Observe more than you speak. In every room, people are revealing themselves, not just with their words, but with their posture, their tone, the micro-expressions that flicker across their face. They tell you what they fear, what they desire, what they're hiding. But most people miss these signals because they're too busy crafting their next statement. Not you, not anymore. When you speak less, you perceive more. You begin to notice who interrupts, who performs, who breaks eye contact when challenged. You stop trying to keep up with the noise and start studying the patterns. You're no longer just another voice in the room. You're watching, learning. This isn't you stepping back. It's you leveling up. Strategic patience means holding your position while others reveal theirs. Because when you understand more than you reveal, you gain something most people never do. Leverage, timing, control. The observer doesn't win with force. They win because they know exactly when to act and when deliberate inaction serves better. Quietly, intentionally, you're positioning yourself to lead. These first 2 rules form the foundation of quiet power. Master the inner war. Observe more than you speak. Together, they build the kind of influence that others don't see forming. The kind that doesn't seek external validation, because it's already operating several moves ahead. Part 2. Power without pressure. Nothing strengthens authority so much as silence. Leonardo da Vinci. In Part 1, we explored the foundation of quiet power, mastering the inner war and observing more than you speak. These are the roots. They ground you. Now we move to the next level. How to remain unmoved in the storm and how to shape outcomes without force, noise, or apparent effort. True power rarely announces itself. It doesn't need to. Consider the difference between a novice martial artist and a master. The novice relies on visible effort, straining muscles, forceful movements. The master appears to barely move, yet achieves more decisive results. This is the paradox of power. The more you have, the less you need to display. In the coming chapters, we'll explore the middle layers of mental dominance. Not just how you control yourself, but how you maintain that control when chaos erupts around you. And not just how you observe, but how you shape what others perceive. These are the skills that transform presence into influence, that convert patience into leverage. This is where quiet power begins to move the world. Let's continue. Chapter 3, Rule 3, Stay emotionally neutral in chaos. Consider what happens in most high-stakes situations. Someone speaks with intensity. Another responds with matching energy. Emotions escalate. The room gets tense. Voices rise. People scramble to control the moment. Heart rates increase. Cortisol floods the system. And with each escalation, rational thought diminishes. Strategic thinking vanishes. Survival instincts take over. And you breathe. You don't flinch. You don't frown. You don't fight the fire. You study it. That's Rule 3. Stay emotionally neutral in chaos. This isn't about becoming cold or distant. It's about sovereign control. Emotional neutrality is a rare currency in a marketplace flooded with reaction. The person who maintains composure when others unravel commands unspoken authority. Not because they're unfeeling, but because they've mastered something others haven't. The ability to separate stimulus from response. Think of a master poker player, a seasoned battlefield general, a practiced Stoic. Their power isn't projected through volume. It's conveyed through what they refuse to reveal. Because when emotions flood the room, neutrality becomes the scarcest resource, and what's scarce becomes valuable. When others are emotional, they become predictable. They react rather than respond. They reveal their fears, their attachments, their weaknesses. But the emotionally neutral, they remain illegible. They maintain the freedom to choose their next move without telegraphing it. They see clearly, while others are blinded by their own reactions. This isn't just philosophy. It's neurochemistry. The amygdala, your brain's threat detector, responds to emotional contagion. When you remain neutral while others escalate, you short-circuit this process. You maintain access to your prefrontal cortex, the seat of strategic thinking. You literally think better when others can't. That's not just an advantage. It's dominance without saying a word. But like any skill, this requires practice. In any situation, conversation, conflict, tension, use this technique. Practice to build up your skill. First, before you respond to any provocation, count 3 full breaths. Feel the impulse to speak rise within you, then watch it recede like a tide. Respond only when your internal waters have stilled. Second, detach from outcomes. Much of our emotional reactivity comes from attachment to specific results. When you're equally prepared for all possibilities, emotional neutrality comes naturally. Third, observe your own physical responses. Notice tension in your jaw, shoulders, or hands. These are early warning signs of emotional reactivity. Release the tension before it becomes visible to others. Fourth, use neutral language. Replace charged words with precise ones. Not, "This is terrible," but "This is unexpected." Not, "I'm furious about this, but I note this discrepancy." Fifth, practice the half smile. A slight, barely perceptible smile communicates both confidence and neutrality. It's the physical embodiment of emotional self-mastery. In moments of heightened tension, watch how people instinctively look to the calmest person in the room. They're seeking an anchor amidst the emotional storm. Be that anchor. You will not diminish your presence, you'll intensify it. People remember who remained centered when everyone else splintered. And more importantly, they come to trust the stability you represent. This is influence at its most fundamental level, not manipulated or manufactured, but earned through genuine self-mastery. Chapter 4, Rule 4, Frame or be framed. In every interaction, a frame is established. It defines the parameters of perception and who possesses invisible control. If you don't set the frame, you're operating within someone else's architecture. And that's where power is surrendered often before the first word is spoken. A frame isn't just a perspective. It's the context that determines how everything within it is interpreted. Think of it as the invisible boundary that decides what's relevant and what isn't. What questions can be asked? What topics matter? Who holds authority and who seeks approval? The untrained mind accepts frames without question. The disciplined mind recognizes them. The dominant mind creates them. A frame can manifest in remarkably subtle ways. Who initiates the conversation? Who poses the questions rather than providing answers? Who maintains composure while others feel compelled to prove their value? Who defines the criteria for success or failure? Who determines the pace and direction of the exchange? It's social physics. Either you create the context, or you adapt to one created for you. Consider a negotiation. Most people focus exclusively on the numbers, the terms, the back and forth as the negotiation moves along. But the mentally dominant understand that negotiations are won or lost before the details are ever discussed. The real question isn't, what price will we agree on? It's, whose reality are we negotiating within? Or consider a job interview. Most candidates enter desperate to impress. The mentally dominant walk in observing, establishing rhythm, asking penetrating questions. They're not performing. They're assessing. That subtle energetic inversion changes the entire dynamic. Here's how to establish a frame in any situation. First, pause deliberately before responding. Rushing signals that you're operating on someone else's timeline. The pause itself communicates that you move at your own pace. Second, ask rather than explain. The person asking questions directs attention. The person constantly explaining themselves surrenders power. Third, speak with measured pace and clear intention. Rapid speech suggests anxiety. Slow, deliberate speech projects certainty. Fourth, reframe what doesn't serve you. When faced with a limiting frame, don't argue against it. Simply establish a new one that encompasses the old. You might say something like, "That's an interesting way to look at it." Another perspective is, fifth, control the meaning of events. It's not what happens that matters, it's what it means. The person who defines the meaning holds the frame. When someone says, "Why haven't you finished this yet?" The untrained mind accepts the embedded accusation of failure. The mentally dominant person reframes. "I'm ensuring it's done correctly rather than quickly." Quality over speed. They're not defending. They're redefining the standard of judgment. Framing isn't manipulation, it's orientation. You're not deceiving anyone. You're simply revealing your true position without the need to justify it. The one who establishes the frame directs the interaction even in moments of silence. Master this rule, and you'll find that people don't just hear your words. They inhabit your reality. So far, you've learned to govern your internal landscape, to accumulate influence through careful observation, to maintain equilibrium while chaos surrounds you, and to shape perceptions with quiet precision. This is how power builds silently, layer upon deliberate layer. Not with spectacle, not with volume, with presence and perfect timing. Consider how different this approach is from what society typically celebrates. Society rewards the loudest voice. Mental dominance cultivates the most centered presence. Society admires reactive passion. Mental dominance values responsive precision. Society follows those who demand attention. Mental dominance respects those who command it without asking. You're not just learning skills, you're inhabiting a different paradigm of influence altogether. In Part 3, we'll bring everything together. We'll explore the most consequential rule of all, the one that communicates before you utter a single word. We'll discuss how these principles integrate into a complete system, how the mastery of self transforms into the subtle direction of others, How quiet power ultimately reshapes the environments you enter. Keep this in mind. While others exhaust themselves chasing validation, attention, or control, you're cultivating something far more powerful. A presence that doesn't seek recognition, but draws it naturally. Not because it shouts, but because it resonates. The kind of presence that doesn't demand recognition, but commands it through stillness. The kind of influence that doesn't need to prove itself because it's self-evident. Stay centered, stay observant, stay neutral, and above all, stay in frame. Part 3. Command presence without saying a word. Fortune favors the prepared mind. Louis Pasteur. By now you understand that the strongest presence doesn't speak first. It doesn't flinch, react, or strain to impress. It waits. It watches. And when it does move, it owns the moment completely. That's the silent force of mental dominance. What most fail to understand about influence is that it's cumulative. Small moments of self, mastery compound. Brief instances where you hold frame rather than surrendering it, add up. The consistent practice of emotional neutrality builds a reputation that precedes you. This isn't about tactics or techniques used occasionally, it's about identity, who you become through persistent practice. You've mastered 4 rules: how to govern the internal landscape, observe the external environment, remain centered in chaos, and establish the frame through which others perceive reality. Now comes the 5th and final rule. The rule that precedes your words and lingers long after you've left the room. Let's move on. Chapter 5, Rule 5, Master the energy you bring into a room. Before you speak, before you sit, before anyone knows your name or title, they feel something. This is Rule 5. Master the energy you bring into a room. It's not mystical. It's not abstract. It's fundamentally behavioral. It's how you move, how you breathe, how you occupy space, without uttering a single word. Most people unknowingly broadcast their internal state. They rush their movements. Their eyes dart nervously. Their shoulders collapse inward. But not you. Not anymore. Because the calmest energy in any environment invariably sets the rhythm. And rhythm is power. Let's understand what happens when someone enters a space. Within milliseconds, others unconsciously assess you. Not your words, not your credentials, not your stated intentions, but your presence. Are you hurried or composed? Are you seeking approval or offering value? Are you performing or simply being? These signals register in the primitive brain long before rational thought engages. Consider 2 leaders entering the same crisis meeting. The first rushes in, immediately speaks, body tense, voice slightly elevated. The message: "This situation controls me." The second enters deliberately, observes first, body relaxed yet alert, voice measured. The message: "I control my response to this situation." Same title, same authority on paper, entirely different energetic impact. Your energetic presence communicates who you are long before your words attempt to explain it. Is it grounded and immovable? Is it controlled and intentional? Is it deliberate and unhurried? When you enter a space slowly, stand with quiet confidence, breathe from your center, and make deliberate eye contact. People don't just notice it, they respond to it at a level beneath conscious awareness. That's not mere confidence, that's command presence. Here's the practice to develop this quality. First, breathe consciously before entering any room. 3 deep breaths from the diaphragm, not the chest. Feel your feet connecting to the ground beneath you. Imagine roots extending into the earth, stabilizing you. Second, reduce your physical pace to half of your habitual speed. Move as if you have all the time in the world, because in this moment, you do. Rushed movement signals anxiety. Measured movement projects authority. Each step deliberate, each gesture intentional. Third, conduct a brief body inventory. Are your shoulders back and relaxed? Is your gaze steady and focused? Are your hands calm and purposeful in their movements? Does your posture communicate openness or defensiveness? Fourth, claim your space unapologetically. Not with aggression or dominance, but with the quiet certainty that you belong precisely where you are. Stand or sit with symmetry and balance. Avoid fidgeting, which signals internal discomfort. Fifth, attune to the energy of the room before adding your own. Like a musician who listens before playing, sense the emotional current before introducing your presence into it. Feel the room's temperature, its level of tension, its pace, its focus. Then consciously adjust or contrast as needed. Sixth, master the power of the directed gaze. Your eyes reveal your internal state more than any other feature. When speaking, maintain steady eye contact. When listening, offer your complete visual attention. Learn to look at people, not past them or through them. Seventh, develop vocal resonance that commands attention. Speak from your diaphragm, not your throat. Lower your vocal register slightly. Pause deliberately between sentences. Allow silence to amplify your words rather than rushing to fill it. This practice isn't about performance. It's about alignment, bringing your external presence into harmony with your internal mastery. The signals most people send are accidental. Yours will be intentional. Most project what they feel. You'll project what you decide. The difference is mastery. Remember, nature abhors a vacuum. In any environment lacking a clear, energetic center, the most grounded presence will naturally fill that role. The person who controls their energy controls the room, without ever needing to announce it. Energy precedes effectiveness. Presence precedes persuasion. Who you are when you enter determines what's possible when you speak. This is the culmination of all previous rules. The external manifestation of internal discipline. Let me share a narrative that illustrates the principles of quiet power in action, how they work together as an integrated system. You've been invited to participate in a high-stakes negotiation. The stakes are significant, and the tension will be palpable. Others might prepare only their talking points, their arguments, their defenses. But you prepare differently. You prepare yourself. The morning of the meeting arrives. First, you apply Rule 1, master the inner war. You take 15 minutes of complete silence, not to rehearse what you'll say, but to settle your mind. To remember that regardless of the outcome, you remain in control of your responses. You arrive early, not from anxiety, but from strategy. You want to observe the room, the dynamics, the positioning. This is Rule 2, observe more than you speak. As you approach the meeting room, you pause. 3 deep breaths. Shoulders reset. Intention set. You open the door and step in unhurriedly. This is Rule 5 in action. Mastering the energy you bring into the room. You say nothing at first. You scan the environment methodically. You listen attentively. You perceive the underlying tension before anyone articulates it. You notice who sits where, who speaks first, who defers to whom. The alliances and tensions written in body language, not organizational charts. You're gathering data while others are gathering their thoughts. The meeting begins. Someone speaks too rapidly, betraying their anxiety. Another interrupts frequently, revealing their need for control. A third over-explains, signaling their insecurity. The discussion grows heated. Voices elevate. Faces tighten. This is where Rule 3 activates. Stay emotionally neutral in chaos. While others react, you respond. While they tense, you remain relaxed but alert. You don't match their emotional escalation, you maintain your center. You wait, grounded, rooted in stillness. When a contentious point arises, someone turns to you and says, "Don't you think this proposal is completely unreasonable?" The question contains a frame, an attempt to pull you into their perspective, but you recognize it. This is Rule 4, frame or be framed. Instead of accepting their frame, you establish your own. I think we should clarify what reasonable means in this context. You're not dodging, you're redirecting, moving the conversation from reaction to analysis. And when you finally offer your complete perspective, the room collectively leans in toward you. Not because your voice carries volume, but because your presence has made everything else seem like noise. You didn't grab. After the meeting, something interesting happens. People approach you individually. Some seek your perspective on other matters. Others simply want to continue the conversation. Not because you dominated the discussion or forced your view, but because you represented something increasingly rare, a centered human being in a reactive world. This isn't manipulation, it's integration, the natural result of aligning your internal state with your external expression. When there's no gap between who you are and how you appear, power flows without resistance. And here's what most will never understand. This influence doesn't deplete you. It doesn't require constant performance or exhausting effort. Quite the opposite. It emerges precisely when you stop trying to be powerful and simply embody the principles we've explored. The 5 rules aren't separate techniques. They're facets of the same diamond, different expressions of a unified approach to influence. This is how you quietly win at everything. Not through force or volume or manipulation, but through presence, perception, and precision. Final reflections. Let's bring everything together. The complete system of quiet power. 1. Master the inner war. Control your reactions before attempting to influence external circumstances. Find power in the pause between stimulus and response. This is the foundation. Without it, all other efforts collapse. When you master your inner responses, you gain freedom where others remain reactive. You choose rather than compel. You respond rather than react. You decide rather than default. In a world addicted to impulsivity, self-mastery becomes your unfair advantage. 2. Observe more than you speak. Become the student of human behavior in every room. Gather information while others expose their positions. Most people enter interactions with their attention focused inward, on what they'll say next, on how they're being perceived, on what they need from the situation. You'll do the opposite, focusing outward, absorbing everything. The subtle tells of discomfort, the power dynamics not shown on any org chart, the hidden currents of motivation beneath surface-level demands. This makes you dangerous, not because you manipulate, but because you understand. 3. Stay emotionally neutral in chaos. Maintain your center when others lose theirs. Let stillness become your signature in turbulent situations. Emotional neutrality isn't about being emotionless. It's emotional sovereignty, feeling deeply without being controlled by those feelings. When pressure mounts and stakes rise, most people become more predictable. Their patterns intensify. Their reactions accelerate. But you'll become more deliberate, more measured, more precise. This creates an asymmetry of power that others feel but cannot name. 4. Frame or be framed. Establish the context through which reality is perceived. Direct attention rather than competing for it. Most people argue within the boundaries of established frames. They accept the premise, then debate the conclusions. You'll question the premise itself. You'll reset contexts that don't serve the greater purpose. You'll establish frames that expand possibility rather than contract it. This isn't about winning arguments, it's about transcending the need to argue at all. 5. Master the energy you bring into a room. Lead with presence before words. Let your state become the gravitational center that others orbit. Your energy is contagious, whether you intend it to be or not. The question is, what are you spreading? Most people unconsciously transmit their internal weather, their stress, their anxiety, their uncertainty. You'll consciously project what serves the moment. Calm when needed. Focus when required. Warmth when appropriate. This isn't performance, it's alignment. The outward expression of inward mastery. These 5 rules operate as a unified system. Each reinforces the others. Each compensates for temporary lapses in the others. They're not mere tactics or temporary strategies. They're enduring principles that reshape your fundamental relationship with power. They take consistent practice. disciplined attention, unwavering intention. They transform your external world precisely because they first transform you. Consider the contrast between this approach and conventional advice about influence. Most advice tells you what to do. These rules focus on who to be. Most advice offers external techniques. These rules develop internal capacities. Most advice promises quick results. These rules build lasting power. This is the paradox at the heart of true influence. The less you chase it, the more naturally it flows to you. The less you perform it, the more authentically you embody it. This isn't about becoming someone you're not. It's about revealing who you've always been beneath the noise of reaction and performance. When you integrate these principles, something remarkable happens. You stop thinking about influence as something you do. It becomes something you are. And in that transformation lies the ultimate secret of quiet power. As we conclude, reflect on these questions. Which rule resonates most deeply with your current circumstances? Which represents your greatest area for growth? And who might you become when you no longer chase validation or attention, but naturally command it? The practice of quiet power isn't about dominating others. It's about mastering yourself so thoroughly that influence becomes effortless. It's about creating value through presence rather than noise, impact through intention rather than force. If this approach to influence speaks to you, subscribe to Still Stoicism for more guidance on this path. This is merely the beginning of a much deeper exploration. Remember, quiet power isn't a temporary technique. It's not something you switch on when it's convenient. It's a lifelong practice, a way of being, built over time. And every time you choose discipline over reaction, stillness over noise, you reinforce it. Don't just learn quiet power,